Hi, Chris.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good, good.
What city are you in?
I am currently in frozen Cincinnati, which is for people that are international, in the middle of the U.S., in the middle of the corn state in the U.S.
Why is it called the corn state? You guys grow a lot of corn out there?
Yeah, well, it's basically called the flyover state because everybody's flying from the East Coast, from the West Coast to the East Coast, and everybody just kind of waves as they fly over. But yeah, there's a lot of
Okay.
corn, a lot of cows, a lot of snow right now. So.
Okay, cool. But also a lot of entrepreneurs like yourself, right?
Yeah, I think actually Cincinnati, believe it or not, is an upcoming city. I think for Amazon. Actually, I'm working on an article with a local paper about a lot of new agencies that are popping up in Cincinnati because our headquarters of Procter and Gamble is here in Cincinnati, and so
Oh,
outside of New York and LA, actually, there's more advertising agencies in the world in Cincinnati, which I thought is an interesting statistic. But
oh, nice.
uh,
So, are you yourself an Amazon seller by any chance or e-commerce seller?
I'm not. I came from a different background. My background's really entirely with advertising agencies, so smaller ones up through larger conglomerates like WPP, Publicis, and some others. And so, actually, about a couple years ago, I ran into Amazon because our clients at the advertising agency were asking us more and more of, hey, you do our D2C website, you do all of our branding, you do all of our content, all of our social, so on and so forth. What do you do for Amazon? And the answer still, I think to this day in general, in the advertising agency is nothing. They're doing nothing about it. And so you've got this industry that you know so well is popping up, this cottage industry that's taking over where they're left off, I guess. So, yep.
That's right. So now you created a service, right, for Amazon sellers and for e-commerce sellers? Because I looked you up on LinkedIn here.
Hmm.
And I saw that you run nReach, which says Amazon Seller Advisor, so to
Yep.
say, right? So what do you
Yeah.
advise on?
Well, it's a good question. And my message, I'm launched about 6 months ago or so. My service really is a reaction to, again, what I saw in the advertising agency business is that a lot of these brands, Fortune 1000 brands, large brands, need help on Amazon, and there's really no trusted resources out there. I shouldn't say there's none. It's hard to find trusted resources in this space. And as you know, there are small one-person shops. There's some larger agencies that have emerged, some larger Amazon-specific agencies. But really, there's no trusted place you can send, again, a large brand to that would get the service that they would get necessarily from, say, an advertising agency, an account manager, project manager, a dedicated rep, a solid company underneath it of, X amount of employees and so on and so forth. And so what nReach does is it finds sellers, trusted resources. That's all we do. We just marry two parties together. So if I'm a seller, I'm looking for a marketing person in Europe. I can help vet those people, find them, interview them with them, and then help make a final decision based on that. But as you can see here, goes through every aspect of business consulting, down through account management, through accounting, through insurance, through international issues, logistics. Really, the list goes on and on. And I help marry people that do those things with people that need those services.
I guess for me as a seller, the bigger pain point would be with service providers rather than the softwares. Because software you can like Google for reviews and compare yourself and test it out, but with service provider you can't really test out which PPC agency is better than the other or which
Yeah,
photographer is better than the other, right? You
yeah, no,
have to.
you're exactly right. I actually started out was my goal was to assess and categorize every service and software provider out there, which sounds like a daunting task. Um, but what I gave up on the software side, just per your point, is the features change every day. Unless you're using it every day and you know the nuances and the support behind it and so on and so forth, you really don't know the software, and you kind of go with what you like and what you know, maybe what you're trained on. Whereas the
Mhm.
service is more esoteric, it's more qualitative, right? It's like, do I like who I'm working with? Do they have expertise in this space? Are they the right size? And so on and so forth. So to your point, I dropped the software side of things because it's impossible to track all the things that are going on
Yeah,
the side where
there's so
software.
many. I've
Yeah.
tried to do that. I have this website page on my on our list. So I started doing that before as well. I guess many of us have the same idea to have all the resources. And
Yep.
I have like mostly software, which me as an Amazon seller tested out. And then I wrote a review and I put like a
Yep.
bad face or good face, but they've changed and I haven't updated many of them and I keep getting emails, why this are now good, and this is just like so much work. There's like 700 of these softwares. So I
Yep.
don't know how many thousands are service providers. So I do have only very few service providers because it's so hard to judge for me without testing their services. You
Uh-huh.
have to it's hard. So it always goes by the referral in my world, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. There's a service I think you know it well. It's like Sermando is attempting to do that same thing where there's kind of a
Yeah.
directory of things. The advantage, and nothing against those guys, love those guys. And I
Yeah, they're
think
my
from a
friends.
soft,
Tobias,
yeah,
Christina, hi guys. Yeah.
from from a software standpoint or the like, it may make sense to use like more of a directory. I think Web Retailer is probably one of the older ones out there
Yeah,
that's
Andy.
tackling that space as well, and they do an excellent job at it. The unfortunate thing is, I just would not necessarily make a decision, kind of on, what we term in the U.S. like yellow pages, in the sense that we're just going to flip. In the old days, you'd flip through a book and say, okay, I need a plumber, and I'm going to go with the top plumber or the biggest ad, or maybe the one with the most stars next to it. If that. The problem is, I think with Amazon services is that it's a little more nuanced than that. You wouldn't necessarily choose necessarily an advertising agency that way. For instance, you'd want to know, what makes them tick. Are they creative? How who am I going to be actually working with? Do they have, again, category expertise in what I'm looking for, and so on and so forth. So to find a trusted partner, if you will, in that space, it takes more of an interview process as well as sort of a qualitative matchup. Whereas I think, with software, it's more kind of what you're used to or what you prefer, kind of thing. So.
So you told me you're new, like 6 months old. So have you noticed any trends in terms of what business do you get the most? Like, is it the PPC agencies that are looking for mostly? Like, what is the biggest pain point so far that you're seeing? Because
That I've seen. Yeah, it's an excellent question. You know, the front end stuff is obviously the most popular stuff. So, the marketing and advertising, pay-per-click, SEO, all the photography, listing management, brand protection, all that stuff, that front end stuff is obviously the most crowded at the moment. There's a lot of providers in that space. There's also a lot of demand in that space, obviously, as well. And then it trails off as you get into more complicated things like logistics and insurance and legal and accounting and so on and so forth. But the pain point I find the most, to be honest with you, is professionalism, and I mean that in the sense that there's a desperate need of maturity in the space, if you will. So, and I don't. It sounds like I'm knocking the whole industry, which I'm not. But really, outside of the Amazon world, because it's moving so fast, there is a level of professionalism. So, for instance, from an accounting side, truly best practices in that respect, or from a brokerage standpoint, not to get too detailed, but like there's mergers and acquisitions, which is a very established space, is not here yet, and yet you still have these brokers that, for instance, are doing it, say, in an immature way. As I mentioned earlier, you might not have a project manager, you might not have an account manager, you might not have those aspects that you might be used to in a larger company, more mature company outside of Amazon. There's a desperate need for that to be to a big dosage of that in this space. So to answer your question, what's the pain point? For me, it's really weeding out the trusted experts in the space like yourself. And also, really through networking, I'm finding out who the bigger players are in the space and how let's trust them. That kind of gets to your question, how am I vetting people? And it's really the known players are there in this space that are the experts. It's just a matter of then assessing them for what are they good, are they good for the other things as well? Like, can I send a client there? Are they going to be handled well? Are they going to be turned over? Are they going to be advanced? Their sales are going to increase and those type of things. And so, a long-winded story is it's that missing element of professionalism, because there are charlatans in the space. There are some others that I think taint the space as far as that's concerned. And I think that's what we'll see in the next coming years is a lot of maturity, acquisitions going on, mergers going on, those type of things where you would see that in a mature space. Does that make sense?
I feel like you are in a tough business field because you will need person to like you personally first. So sort of you need to make a personal connection first before they could trust your referral, so to say, or
Sure.
want to like take your vote for granted. So do you do a lot of personal outreach and networking because of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on the phone all day
Mhm.
with both sides. The provider side, which again is just a never-ending list. I'm finding every day I add a different category, and then certainly when you expand into the international side, I'm speaking with. I just had calls yesterday with Brazil and tried to find a client that's trying to figure out the Brazil marketplace and get in early. So they need legal help in that space and some consulting in that space. So I help them hunt them down as well. But on the other side, I spend the other day, portion of my day, really interviewing clients. So I network a lot through my advertising agency network, through direct clients interaction. I'm also getting a lot of referrals from other providers that say, for instance, they may do something, they may do legal, but they don't do, for instance, account management or something along those lines. And so I'm getting a lot of feedback, as well as saying, hey, Chris, we trust Chris to place with this other project. Here's another project for him as well. And so business is good. But to answer your question, yes, it's all about personality. It's all about trust in the space, which again is something that's, I think, lacking a little bit right now.
So you not being an Amazon seller, do you feel that's a disadvantage or advantage in your case?
It is and it isn't. I am a nerd in the sense I'd love to learn that stuff and actually get my hands dirty in the actual doing of things. But I think I'm wizened enough or maybe old enough to know that to leave that to the professionals that are following it every day. And so it would have helped that I was a seller. In fact, I'm toying with becoming one just to have gone through the experience as well. But I'm also bringing a level of expertise from outside of the Amazon bubble in what I think is an equivalent world, a mature, grown world of the digital advertising space. So in the digital advertising space, you have the equivalent of PPC, which has been AdWords, which is now 20 years old. You've got Facebook, which has been upcoming up on their 20th anniversary as well, and advertising there and social. SEO has been around since Google's been around. All the digital content, blogging, podcasting, all of that stuff is nearing about 20 years old. And I have experience in that industry, and I'm bringing that to the Amazon world. So I wouldn't have that necessarily if I had a seller background, but I'm bringing that, I think, with given my background, bringing that world hopefully here, so they can again leverage some of that to bring, to help make some trusted decisions. If that makes sense.
So you're kind of an affiliate marketer, but you don't do your traffic like inbound. You rather do outbound with the phone calls. Is that it?
It's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah. I actually work. I'm a free to the seller, so I don't charge anything to the seller for my services. I charge typically it's a percentage of the first realization or first gross revenue that's realized from that client for the first year to the service provider. So that's my influence, or that's my affiliate marketing fee, if you will. But you're exactly right. It's a little bit, it's a different direction where it's not as easy as an affiliate link. Like I can't just link to somebody and get the credit for that. I have a long process that I walk them through to earn my fee, if that makes sense. So.
Okay. So because you do so much outreach and networking, tell me a bit of, you use LinkedIn mostly. I'm just curious about some maybe tips on the outreach part. You
Sure.
do LinkedIn outreach mostly, right? You do cold outreach?
Yeah, for the most part. Well, I do have a degree of cold outreach, but I'm still leveraging my 20 years of connections through
A degree on
brands.
outreach? Wait a minute. There is a degree for that?
I don't know, is that what I said? I do a degree, is what I think I said. So a measure of that. I wish there was a
Okay.
degree in it.
Yeah.
But I do have a biz dev background in agencies, so I've done a degree of cold calling. Like I'm actually in the process of outsourcing that right now to an ad agency search business, which is in the old digital world and the traditional ad agency world. There are companies that do nothing but biz dev for agencies, and I'm actually leveraging one of them for myself. But I still, again, leveraging a lot of the friendships and the relationships I've gotten from my career. And to answer your question, yes, LinkedIn is an invaluable tool for prospecting.
Hmm. So how does it work? Like, what do you say when you reach out? Let's say, okay, so you're only reaching out to service providers, is it? And then the Amazon sellers reach out to you. It's inbound. Is
Yeah,
that the model?
I do both. So I've got to build up a network, a trusted network of trusted providers that I can assess and make sure that if I send them business, they're going to the proper place. So I've been spent about 6 months building up that network, and I think I've identified major players. That's never ending. It's always an ongoing process to build that network. But on the other hand, the other half of my day is outbound sales. So I am reaching out to brands out there. I'm actually going through a lot of advertising agencies to get to their brands. So, for instance, a larger advertising agency might have 6 or 8 clients within it that are doing stuff with Amazon. So if I sell myself to the ad agency and then to their first client, then I've got a house of brands that I can also sell into as well. So that's
Hmm.
another tip for others. The ad agency business for anyone is anyone selling services in the space is just a prime channel for you. Um, they are really in this. They're slower moving than this industry, than this boutique industry that's grown up, and so they need a lot of help in this space, and they're getting more and more questions. So I would encourage anybody from a biz dev standpoint to target ad agencies. Please, more in that space, the better. And then again, through LinkedIn, I do a little degree of cold calling. I have a cold calling list and the like, but I'm looking to outsource that stuff. That's not the fun stuff. So
Hmm. Cold calling. Oh my God. I just like, ooh.
yeah,
You're gonna cold call. Hi, I'm calling
yeah,
from this company, and they're like, hang up. Oh,
yeah, yeah.
don't you
Uh,
get like sad by the end of the day or down, feeling down?
it is. It's my what I'm. It depends what you're selling, right? So I've been in. Again, I'm going to date myself, but I go back to the beginning of the internet. So I've been in several positions selling software, for instance, where it's exactly that. You get a lot of no's, but in this space, it's really ends up being a conversation either way because most of the cases, the brands that I'm talking to are probably on their third service provider. They went a couple of years ago. They went with somebody that their sister knew, maybe that does this stuff, and so they went and they got their listings up, and that went okay, but they kind of languished a little bit. Then they probably went through some interview process, maybe went with some smaller shop, maybe 3, 4, 5 guys, and that worked out for a little bit, but they didn't have an appreciation for branding or messaging or those type of things. And now what I'm finding at these larger brands are looking for is an agency that appreciates all the design and the branding aspects and the messaging married with all the bells and whistles of how to make their listings optimized. And that's right now is my challenge, is to marry those and find those people that have both of those things for the brands I'm bringing them. And it's harder than you think. It's just again, I can only equate it to a maturity in the space or really a professionalism, so that where outside of Amazon is married with inside of Amazon. I think that's the right combo, if that makes sense.
So it's sort of like a two-sided marketplace you're building for yourself, which is hard. Yeah, the
Yeah,
chicken and egg problem.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand. Oh, look, there's a fly.
Oh,
I live in Turkey right now. The window
yeah.
is open, so
I
flies
see.
come
What's
in freely.
what's the weather like there right now?
Uh, it was still good for swimming yesterday. Today is not.
Oh
So,
my,
yeah.
we're at 25 degrees, so and got our first snow. So
25, that's Fahrenheit, though.
yeah, yeah. So
We are
my bad.
25 Celsius. Yeah, yeah.
I'm American. Forgive me. Forgive me.
All right. So I've been doing a little bit of outreach on LinkedIn, but I find on LinkedIn it's not really the same as other channels. I don't know why. It's just on LinkedIn there's a lot of this copy pasted type of, hey, I am from this company, let's do something together. Then 1 week later, following up on what I said, and then
Yeah,
something, it's like so boring. I don't even want to read or respond or nothing like that. So is
sure.
there a trick that you use, or have you discovered what works better
Yeah.
so far?
Well, I think it helps to have a relevant message. I mean, a lot of those messages that we see, like the spam in our LinkedIn folder. First of all, I'm not a LinkedIn fan. I hate LinkedIn. I think it's probably got the worst interface of any software I've ever run into. And heaven forbid if you actually buy the Sales Navigator piece, the upgrade. now you have two inboxes, which is, I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting. And that, everything's like it took me a week to look over here. We're like, oh, I do have emails over here, but so I'm not a big fan of it, but I think it serves a purpose. I think as long as you reach out with a message that's relevant. So, messages in my email box are selling me insurance or selling me, services that I don't need. There's no timeliness to it. They didn't do any research or anything along those lines. Whereas I'm reaching out, I think, with a pain point. I don't know anybody that doesn't consider Amazon a pain point, So even if they're kicking butt on the Amazon, they still have needs in that space. And so when I reach out, I do a short personal message saying, I know you're in this space. You may have these needs. For instance, you may be looking to hire for this, or you may be looking at that. And I've actually gotten, I would say, on the order of like a 50% response rate. Just with either linking in and saying, hey, I want to connect, or hey, keep me in mind for the future. When I do make a decision on Amazon or things along those lines.
But what specifically do you say? You don't just say, hi, I'm Chris, I want to connect. Do you give any more information, or you say something
Sure.
personal about the person?
Yeah, like I'll do, a little bit of research on them, like for instance, the category they're in. So for instance, yesterday there was a client I was interested in reaching out to cold, that was in the toy category. So I had actually had clients in the toy industry. So I actually compiled a quick note and said, hey, I've worked with this, and this brands. Would love to talk to you about your Amazon needs or things along those lines in the toy space. So right then and there, it's on there. They know I did some research. Now that might be two, Google clicks. But still, I've directed it towards them. Again, I think Amazon's a pain point for anybody. And then if I pull out category expertise, I may want to talk to this guy, kind of thing. So again, it has to be relevant. It can't just be a canned, as you say, cut and paste, or everybody sees through that, so.
Very interesting. Yeah, I still have to think about LinkedIn. How can I use it a little better? I find that the feed is working very nicely these days. Whatever you post, it's got so much more views than YouTube. Like my videos get 26 views on YouTube and then get 2,500 views on LinkedIn feed. It's very, very good these days for the LinkedIn feed. But in terms of connecting with people, I still have to find this nice way that it would actually get me like higher quality leads, so to say,
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great thing here, in the sense this is a great idea of establishing those relationships. Yeah, I think your views are probably, your videos are probably getting a lot of views because that's your professional network, your peers that are viewing you because they consider you an expert and the like. Maybe the stuff that you're posting on Facebook potentially is more, the end user, the client, brand facing stuff. And so, but content's king, like, video's even harder to do, which, so kudos to you. But there's a lot of always. Imagine if we didn't have LinkedIn, though. I mean, again, I always go back to like, imagine if I didn't have my iPhone. Like, how did I survive when I didn't have my iPhone? And it's just kind of the same way with LinkedIn. It's like I hate my phone, but I can't imagine living without it. And it's the same thing with LinkedIn. It's what a powerful tool for reaching out to peers. Certainly for being, building out, your professional network. It's great. Now, prospecting, that's debatable, but it's still there, and it's a tool that you can use. And so, so I hate it. It's a love-hate relationship. So
I've been doing audio replies on some of them. Some of them are sort of pass through my radar sometimes, and I don't even click into the message. I just read the first 4 words in the preview of each message, and that's what it takes, Hi, right. I am from, that's it. This is boring. I am from, wherever you are from, I don't want to know. But right. If it says, Paulina, I saw your, then, okay, I want to see what you saw mine, right? Yeah, so it's different 4 words that make me read it. And then I like to reply with audio message because I'm super lazy to type in. So I'm just going to say, hey, so what's up? So your description doesn't say what you do. So can you just tell me a little bit more? So I just record an audio message with the phone because I don't know, on desktop they have an audio option. And then that makes it easier. They get the audio message, they listen to it in their LinkedIn Messenger, and then we get the conversation going.
I'll have to try that. That's interesting. It's an interesting world, but what's old is new again, in the sense that you mentioned like getting an email and then sending another email and sending another email. But I mean, I think tools like sales automation, again, going back to the outside Amazon world, sales automation is one of the hottest things in marketing right now. Where you set up a tree, and based on whether they respond to an email, you send them another email, and vice versa, and that works. It's not pretty, but it works, and so I think I would encourage everybody to go back to see, PPC on Amazon or on Google works. Believe it or not, nobody in this space talks about AdWords, but it's definitely supportive. Social, as you mentioned, Facebook and others. Off Amazon efforts are almost as important as on Amazon efforts for not only selling, I think, but also for networking as well. So.
You seem to me like someone who would understand a lot about branding, even though you didn't mention branding at all in the whole conversation. But so have you done something related to that? Because like the way you talk, it's sort of similar to those who I interviewed who are branding experts.
Sure.
And because you see the big picture, right? You're thinking about who's growing and what implication. You sort of step out of just Amazon and think about like the whole world, like what are the opportunities. So that's usually the branding expert's point of view. So do you have any experience with that?
Well, that's a great compliment. I couldn't draw a stick figure, but I do have an appreciation for branding and copy. And fortunately, I've worked with some of the most brilliant advertising agency minds I think that exist, and have really given me an appreciation for the branding side of things. And again, I think it's something I think is missing on this side of Amazon, if I may. Even Amazon themselves acknowledges that they don't really give a brand the opportunity to really leverage, a lot of things related to their brand. And I think that's changing, but I think it's also an appreciation in the industry from professionals of like, okay, it's important to, for instance, SEO your listings, but you still have to be true to the brand. You can't say something that's off brand, for instance, despite even if it would work from an SEO standpoint, or you can't use this ad copy because it's not related to the other campaigns we're doing. It's not related to our TV or Super Bowl ad that's running right now, And so, there's the two worlds are going to meet, right? So the leverage, the Amazon specific guys that are very myopic and following what Jeff does every day, which is exactly, super important, are coming to meet these other folks that are worried about their brand every day, and vice versa. And in between, I think there's a great merger, but it's not happening yet. And it won't happen for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I really don't think the ad agency world will have any Amazon services probably for another 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So it's sad, but it's an opportunity for all of us, I think. So.
But I like that Amazon is new, like that, the gold rush started in 2014 and since, 5 years ago, but we are still feeling that it's new, like undiscovered territory, right? It's still like, we know all about it, but it's so fresh, like in terms of apps and services, they're all just born, and it's all just being settled. So there's a lot of this uncharted territory that we are actually, as entrepreneurs, love the most, right? To step somewhere where nobody's been before.
You hit it right on the head. It's exciting. I'm a tech nerd by just in my roots. My first job I had Netscape 1.0 installed. So that'll date you, right? That dates me. Netscape is anyway, long time ago. And so when I ran into Amazon, everything was like, it's like a reboot. Like all the stuff that was going on, all this stuff is not new. None of this marketing stuff and none of these issues around legal issues or, tax issues or anything along those lines is new. But it's a new world where all of the tools everything gets a reset. All the tools are new. All the people are new. It changes all the time. It's not old and stodgy like Google, And I fell in love with it the minute I ran into it. But there's a lot of challenges, obviously, in the space as a result of its newness as well. So.
That's so true. Yeah, and you help people to chart the waters, right?
I try. Yeah.
So how can people contact you if they are interested in getting a few referrals and pointers in choosing the services?
Yeah, I'd offer to reach out to LinkedIn. It's under Chris Freiberger, the only Freiberger I think out there, FRYBURGER. And my website is nReach, is NREACH.com. I'm going to encourage people to reach out to me that way with any questions. I'm also offered to talk shop anytime. I take calls all the time from people that just want to talk about, what do you think about this? And I'm happy to offer that as well. So.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Well,
Great.
thank you so much for meeting with me today. Great
so
background. I really enjoyed looking at it the whole time.
That's
Yeah.
the Amazon spheres for anybody that doesn't know in Seattle. If you ever get a chance to go there, they're gorgeous. Jeff built those, I think, out of an ego thing, but regardless, they're really cool.
And there's nReach logo right behind there,
Yeah.
hanging the other way. Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, I'll talk to you sometime soon. Thank you so much, Chris.
I appreciate it, Polly. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you.